All right, hey everybody, this is Shantavia Johnson. I am here with my business partner, Dean Tonya Evans, and we want to talk a little bit about the Phoenix Rising Virtual Summit and how excited we are about it and how excited we are to have you there as a participant in this really transformative experience. So the Phoenix Rising Summit came about because Tonya and I both speak and write and do a lot of things outside of our day to day. And we were scheduled to speak at South by Southwest. What was it, Tonya? Early March or so.
Sounds right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a couple of weeks before, we, like so many of you, were talking to each other and talking to conference organizers about what was going to happen in the wake of the coronavirus. It wasn't a pandemic then, but in wake of the coronavirus working its way through the country, through the U.S. And so as we were going back and forth about these things, we saw lots of people on social media doing it. Probably 80% of my Twitter feed was all about people with anxiety over these same things. What are we going to do about our speaking engagements, or about our jobs, or about our careers? What is going to happen? So Tonya and I started thinking about this, putting our heads together, especially as speaking events and other things started dropping like flies, right? I think South by, for you and for me, was really the first thing to say, hey, we're going to cancel. And some were just cancellations, not we're going to reschedule at some point in the future, right?
Right.
So we started seeing this in our own lives, and then with our social media communities, and then, outside of the virtual world with people that we know and work with every day. Many of us were losing opportunities. So Tonya and I started brainstorming. Tonya, I think this was really your idea. This was your brainchild, and it took off from there. Do you want to talk a bit about how the summit in particular came to be a thing?
Right. Well, after that moment where you really, you see a crisis come out of nowhere, right? And it impacts you in ways that are unimaginable, really. And any crisis isn't great, but when you think of it, not just for you or for your family, but for an entire nation and indeed the entire world, that is the type of crisis with a capital C that is just unprecedented. And you can really get trapped in fear. And necessarily so when you have medical issues or health insurance issues, financial issues. You had a job or a career that you thought was stable, and the next day you're furloughed or you're fired, or hours are reduced, or in some ways things change. So this virtual event is designed for anyone whose career is feeling the direct impact of the crisis. And there's so much uncertainty. We really wanted to find a way in a virtual space to really leverage technology to connect the people who wanted to deliver the information, some of our colleagues who are out there delivering exceptional information, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but also for those who want to figure out how to make the next move. What's the next move? How not to just survive, but to thrive in this time. And so that was the origin and why, when you think of the Phoenix rising out of the ashes, that's where the name, we kicked around a lot of names. And as it happens with everything that we build together, we know it when we hear it. And the imagery and the mythology around rising out of the ashes is really important, because I think that's where we all find ourselves. So for those who are contemplating looking for a new job, or thinking about taking time now to start that thing that was the side hustle that you want to bring to the foreground, wondering if now is the right time to invest, figuring out what is in the CARES Act for you and what steps you can take if you are a business owner and want to retain your staff. So we'll cover all of those things. And we also take time to focus on the mental health situation that we are all experiencing as we are in with our family, sheltering in place, working from home, educating our children. If you're sitting around wondering what the next step is, we really feel like this is the answer to a lot of those questions and those prayers.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, it's about your career and about whether you're working for somebody else or working for yourself or a combination of both, but also your money. Right? So you talked a bit about investing in the stock market. What should you do about your 401k right now, if you have one? What should you be doing with your cash, with your savings plan, or whatever it is you're doing? And just what should the next steps be? So for those of you who are watching, if you're sitting at home right now and you're not sure, as Tonya mentioned, what the next step is, or even what the first step is, do you just sit and wait for a while? Whether it's this crisis or the next crisis or the next crisis, what we want to do is bring experts together so that we can really crowdsource all of the best practices for careers, for finances in one space at a time where people really, really need it. And we have pulled together some amazing speakers to do this.
Right.
So Tonya's background is in law and innovation and technology. Mine is too. And we are really the organizers and the hosts, but we started looking into our own networks, both of our physical networks and then our virtual networks. And we've pulled together. I tell you, I can't believe how many amazing dynamic speakers we have brought together. And they happen to all be Black women. These are the best in the best in their fields, right, Tonya? These are folks who've been on CNN, on Fortune, on CNBC, on Oprah, in Essence, in Ebony, in Black Enterprise. I mean, you and I have been in some of these things too. But how dynamic of a speakers panel do we have, Tonya?
Amazing, absolutely amazing. We have two stellar keynotes in Minda Harts, who is the founder and CEO of The Memo, and she is the author of the best-selling book, The Memo, that talks about what it means to secure your seat in the table of your career. And also she talks about the transition from being in corporate America to transitioning full-time into her own entrepreneurial endeavor. She had a recent podcast episode, which will be the linchpin of what she'll be talking about for us. And it is about securing your seat from home and what that means, both in corporate America and also as a matter of an entrepreneurial endeavor. So that's really exciting. We have Lynette Khalfani-Cox, who is the CEO of the moneycoach.net LLC. And as you mentioned, she is a New York Times writer. She wrote also Zero Debt, which is the ultimate guide to financial freedom. She's going to be talking about what's in the CARES Act and also, as you said, how to handle your money. She's been on the Today Show, Dr. Phil, Oprah, all of those things. Latesha Byrd, who is a career coach. She is the founder and CEO of Byrd Career Consulting. And she is a phenomenal speaker and a really bright light. So I'm excited about the career advice that she's going to share. Carr is the CEO of the Asbury Group. She also has a platform called Beyond the Business Suit and a podcast too. And not only does she speak to professional Black women in particular, she has a wide net where she is, again, one of the top in her field. She also is really, really inspiring. I remember interviewing her recently and I literally can hear her smile through the phone. So it's, the hardcore advice, but also in a way that really is empowering. Teri Ijeoma, who is the CEO of Invest with Teri and also Trade and Travel. She started out in education, found her way through trading to be able to leave her job and to really finance the life that she wants in up and down markets. And that's exciting. Humphrey, Tech Life Steph, who is described as your friendly neighborhood tech life expert. And she talks about how to be a good digital citizen and how to leverage technology to your advantage. Because we're all working from home, this is the opportunity to hear that. Bärí Williams is one of our fellow Esquires. She is the head of legal and human interest. She is a published author of the New York Times, Wired, Fortune, Fast Company. And she talks about tech and the law. And finally, Dr. Kathleen Walls, who pulls us all together to make sure that while we are pressing and pushing and building and rising, that we make sure that we take time to have our mental health and well-being firmly intact. So I'm really excited about that.
So am I. And obviously all of our speakers are Black women, but this is a summit for anybody. Anybody who right now, whether you have the privilege of staying at home or you have to get out there and work because of the nature of your career, there is something here for you. something that will help you. There's something here for me. I'm going to have my notebook taking notes.
Absolutely.
Just like everybody else. And so just so incredibly excited about the opportunity to hear from these dynamic women. And one of the things is we were talking about what we could do, right? So you and I have backgrounds that don't necessarily lend themselves to helping people get out of a pandemic, right? We were talking about what we could do and seeing the type of social impact that was being made by folks in the healthcare industry, folks who work around food security and folks who work around, eliminating and eradicating homelessness, and seeing the dynamic work that they were doing. What we wanted to do with the type of thing we could create through the Phoenix Rising Virtual Summit is give back to those organizations and to those individuals who are supporting communities through this time. And so a portion of the proceeds from the Phoenix Rising Virtual Summit will definitely go to support those types of entities, organizations. There are a couple nonprofits who are on the short list who we certainly want to support with the money that comes in from this summit.
Absolutely. That's a real, the social impact or community impact is critically important because everybody is impacted in ways that we could never imagine. And ordinarily it's others, but now it's everyone. And this is an important opportunity to lift as we climb. That's critically important. And so making sure that we are giving back in that way is important. Another aspect is making sure we have sponsors on board who support that, to make sure that we are making our commitments from a social impact perspective, and certainly for our speakers, but also to support those who, but for the fact that they just lost their job and have complete financial insecurity, would be, prevented from receiving the very information that we need. So we are really mindful of that and really want to partner with sponsors who can come on board and underwrite the cost so that we can give more complimentary passes to those who need the information most. So this is a community effort. We all need each other. It's cooperative economics, collective work and responsibility, and all of those things make sure that we as a community of people will rise together.